What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to the Scripture Scoop. Some more Bible reading stuff. So, last time I believe was Genesis 25. Because that seems familiar, and Genesis 26, or at least the first subheading therein, does not seem familiar. So that means last time we had Abraham dying, some more genealogy stuff, and then the birth of Jacob and Esau, Isaac's sons. So yeah, that's where we're carrying on from. This is a slightly longer chapter, not too long, but well, actually, it's pretty close to the same length as the last chapter. But anyway, I just want to dive right into this anyway. No need to, spend a whole lot of time explaining what's been going on so far. So, here we go. Chapter 26, verse 1. A severe famine now struck the land, as had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, where Abimelech, king of the Philistines, lived. Okay, so we're back to Abimelech. Abraham also had some dealings with him before. Wasn't that was where they had the conflict over the well and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, verse 2. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham your father. I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars of the sky, and I will give them all these lands. And through your descendants all the nations of the earth will be blessed. I will do this because Abraham listened to me and obeyed all my requirements, commands, decrees, and instructions." Okay, so essentially the covenant that God made with Abraham is now being spoken and carried on with Isaac, and God is confirming this with him, or at least communicating this to him. It's almost like this was bound to happen anyway. I mean, I'm trying to remember where Isaac was. Didn't it say Isaac was living in the Negev? More specifically, I think so. And Gerar, I believe, was further south than that, but not all the way to Egypt. I really wish I had like a map to look at and or show you, just to make it all the more obvious, kind of the geography of things, and maybe some of the distance and things like that involved with these various moves and lands and things like that. But I guess I'll just have to ask you to either look it up online, or if you have a Bible with maps and stuff in the back or throughout, maybe try looking at those. But anyway, so yeah, God promises to give that land, the same land he promised to Abraham, he's now promising to give it to Isaac and his descendants. Anyway, verse 6. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife Rebekah, he said, "She is my sister." He was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought, "They will kill me to get her because she is so beautiful." But sometime later, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out his window and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. Boy, does this stuff not sound familiar? As if this didn't already happen twice with Abraham. Apple tree, not far. Rebekah, yes, was a relative of Abraham, but the sister is definitely like It's a bit of a stretch / slightly inaccurate. Even more so than it was when Abraham said it about Sarah. But anyway. Alright, verse 9. Immediately, Abimelech called for Isaac and exclaimed, "She is obviously your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" "Because I was afraid someone would kill me to get her from me," Isaac replied. "How could you do this to us?" Abimelech exclaimed. "One of my people might easily have taken your wife and slept with her, and you would have made us guilty of great sin." Then Abimelech issued a public proclamation. "Anyone who touches this man or his wife will be put to death." Okay, so, I mean, Abimelech didn't really get caught up in this before, like, Abimelech didn't even go so far as, like, trying to marry or anything with Rebecca, because I guess he learned his lesson from Abraham the past time. But, like, geez, why? I really kind of can't help but wonder why this keeps happening. I mean, if nothing else, this shows that, you know, we're creatures of habit, that we tend to kind of do the same things or react in similar ways to the same situations. But yeah, I wonder, I guess maybe Abimelech knew that Isaac was related to Abraham. It doesn't say for sure how or why he would have known that, but, I mean, come on, you pull a stunt like that, exactly the same as your father, it's not unheard of for somebody to just pick up on, you know, there being a family connection there. So I think maybe it's because of that. Or it's just that Abimelech, you know, knew and respected God and was like, hey, this is a bad thing. Let's not do this thing. Even without knowing that there was a family relationship there. But anyway, verse 12. When Isaac planted his crops that year, he harvested 100 times more grain than he planted, for the Lord blessed him. He became a very rich man, and his wealth continued to grow. He acquired so many flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and servants that the Philistines became jealous of him. So the Philistines filled up all of Isaac's wells with dirt. These were the wells that had been dug by the servants of his father Abraham. So, yes, this was the same place that there was the issue with the well between Abraham and Abimelech. And, wouldn't you know it, more issues now. Like, this is, like, really obvious and outright, the connections between this and, you know, previous places and events. But there are less obvious connections further down the line, and I think this is really hammering home the point that maybe we should pay attention to this stuff. Anyway, verse 16. Finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. "Go somewhere else," he said, "for you have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away to the Gerar valley, where he set up their tents and settled down. He reopened the wells his father had dug, which the Philistines had filled in after Abraham's death. Isaac also restored the names Abraham had given them. Okay, so he moved further away, I guess, seemingly to kind of the outskirts of Gerar. Or maybe he was on the outskirts before and now he moved, I don't know. But in any case, he's essentially now just moving to, you know, a different area of where Abraham and all his people had occupied previously. Because, I mean, how else would he have been digging up the wells from before? So he's still on land that Abraham previously occupied is the main thing here. Or at least the main thing I'm pointing out. Anyway, verse 19. Isaac's servants also dug in the Gerar valley and discovered a well of fresh water. But then the shepherds from Gerar came and claimed the spring. "This is our water," they said, and they argued over it with Isaac's herdsmen. So Isaac named the well Esek, which means argument. Isaac's men then dug another well, but again there was a dispute over it. So Isaac named it Sitnah, which means hostility. Abandoning that one, Isaac moved on and dug another well. This time there was no dispute over it, so Isaac named the place Rehoboth, which means open space. For he said, "At last the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land." So, the well disputes were not just a one-time thing for Isaac. He had multiple attempts, 3 in total it seems here, to dig up a fresh well for himself and his family and servants and all that. And it took until the third one for the other people of Gerar to finally leave him and the well alone. Anyway, verse 23. From there, Isaac moved to Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him on the night of his arrival. I am the God of your father Abraham," he said. "Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will bless you. I will multiply your descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will do this because of my promise to Abraham, my servant." Then Isaac built an altar there and worshipped the Lord. He set up his camp at that place, and his servants dug another well. So, he had found, a place where one well was suitable and left alone, and I guess from there he was like, okay, here's kind of the boundary of where it seems to be acceptable for me to have a new well and it not be disturbed. So let me go from here, expand in this direction, and apparently moved to Beersheba and then set up another well, because, I mean, if you're going to occupy a lot of land, I would assume you need multiple wells. I wish I knew kind of the scope of this a little bit, but anyway, the difficulties with finding a place to live and not be disturbed seemed to be decently solved, and I'm guessing this is where Isaac's going to settle down. But anyway, oh yeah, also, this is the first mention of Isaac building an altar. I mean, Abraham did this quite a lot. I mean, it makes sense Isaac would follow suit, under similar favorable situations. But so far we haven't really heard of Isaac setting up altars quite as much. Maybe because the situations weren't as favorable to him, I don't know. But anyway. Alright, moving on. Verse 26. One day King Abimelech came from Gerar with his advisor Ahuzath, and also Phicol, his army commander. "Why have you come here?" Isaac asked. "You obviously hate me since you kicked me off your land." A somewhat reasonable assumption, at least from Isaac's perspective. Even though from Abimelech's perspective, it was like, okay, Isaac being here is more trouble than it's worth. But the fact that he brought his advisor and his army commander, almost implies that he meaning Abimelech, was ready, to handle some conflict if need be. Anyway, verse 28. They replied, "We can plainly see that the Lord is with you, so we want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. Let's make a covenant. Swear that you will not harm us, just as we have never troubled you. We have always treated you well, and we sent you away from us in peace. And now look how the Lord has blessed you." So, Abimelech made a similar treaty with Abraham for the same kind of reason. So, it just kind of follows, logically speaking. Especially given, previous situations. Verse 30. So Isaac prepared a covenant feast to celebrate the treaty, and they ate and drank together. Early the next morning, they each took a solemn oath not to interfere with each other. Then Isaac sent them home again, and they left him in peace. So, all's well that ends well, I guess? Verse 32. That very day, Isaac's servants came and told him about a new well they had dug. "We've found water," they exclaimed. So Isaac named the well Sheba, which means oath. And to this day, the oath that grew up there is called Beersheba, which means well of the oath. So now there's multiple wells known as Beersheba, from what I can understand, because this was a new well, but there was previously a well named Beersheba. So sometimes, this kind of complicates things a little bit when trying to keep track of, certain places or themes and things like that, because the names given to certain places are used multiple times, it seems. Because again, they were very literal with their names and kind of blunt in a manner of speaking. Just look at the vast majority of these names and any explanations that come with them, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, duh. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Verse 34. At the age of 40, Esau married 2 Hittite wives, Judith, the daughter of Berai, and Basemeth, the daughter of Elon. But Esau's wives made life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. Okay. So Esau at this point has been married, not Jacob, as far as we know. But there's more reasons piling up than just trickery and God's word for Esau being the one who's less favored at this point. But that's not a whole lot of detail so far, so I'm not really gonna, spend too much time dwelling on that matter. Also, again, pronunciations, especially of that second wife of his, it just, I'm trying to go with pronunciations that seem like they're, reasonable and not, super duper Americanized, for lack of a better way to put it. But I really have no clue. Anyway, okay, that does it for this chapter. So, yeah. As always, like and share the video if you enjoyed it and want others to see. Subscribe and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. That way it makes it easier to keep track of, my progression through the Bible. Otherwise, look down in the description for more info on social media stuff and how to find and follow and interact and all that. And of course, leave your comments down below everything with any thoughts that you have. So yeah, that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.